Hello everyone. Today, I will tell you a story that is both magical and powerful, about Zeus, the supreme king of the gods in Greek mythology. Not only is he the president of the Council of Gods on Mount Olympus, Zeus is also an image deeply rooted in modern culture, from astronomy to the most scandalous love stories in the sky. Have you ever wondered, why is the largest planet in the solar system named Jupiter? Simply because Jupiter is the Roman name of Zeus. And it doesn't stop there. Constellations like Gemini, Saturn's satellites like Titan or Epimetheus, even the name Europa, are all related to Zeus's tragic love affairs. But to become such a supreme king, Zeus went through a difficult journey. He was once swallowed by his own father, Cronus, had to flee and then lead a fierce battle against the Titans to reclaim the world. And during his reign, Zeus not only controlled thunder and lightning but also established the rules and maintained order between gods and humans. The story of Zeus is a strange and fascinating epic, full of intrigue, power, love and profound lessons about humanity. Let's explore that thrilling story together. High Voltage: The Thrilling Origin. The birth of Zeus and the fall of the Titan Empire. Once upon a time, when the universe was still chaotic, without humans, without order, the world was ruled by a powerful force called the Titans. The leader of them was Cronus, the son of Mother Earth Gaia and Sky Uranus. After overthrowing his own father Uranus to seize power, Cronus ascended the throne, but he was not at all at ease enjoying the throne. A dark prophecy from Gaia haunted Cronus all his life. One of your children will overthrow you, as you overthrew your father. Panicking with fear of fate, Cronus devised an extreme precaution, swallowing all the children born to his wife, the goddess Rhea. As soon as they were born, each child disappeared into his dark stomach. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, all were imprisoned in eternal darkness. Rhea was in pain and despair, but when it came to her youngest child, Zeus, she was determined not to let the tragedy repeat itself. Using a clever trick, Rhea wrapped a stone in a silk scarf, pretended to be a baby, and gave it to Cronus. Without suspecting anything, he swallowed the stone as usual. Zeus was secretly taken to the island of Crete, where he was raised by the nymphs. To avoid detection by Cronus, it is said that the Kourites warriors banged their shields, danced around Zeus's cradle to drown out the baby's cries, a scene that was both heroic and humorous. As time passed, Zeus grew up, strong and cunning. When he was ready, he returned to confront his tyrannical father. With the help of Métis, the goddess of wisdom, Zeus tricked Cronus into drinking an emetic, causing him to vomit up all the children he had swallowed, as well as the Stone of Destiny. The young gods were freed, uniting with Zeus to stand up against the Titans in the Titanomachy, a battle between two generations of gods. After 10 years of war, with the weapon of lightning given by Cyclops, Zeus defeated Cronus, ending the Titan dynasty and opening the era of the gods on Mount Olympus. When mentioning the Greek gods, people often mention the mighty Zeus, the wise Athena or the talented Apollo. But before the gods of Olympus appeared, the world was ruled by an ancient power, the Titans, led by Cronus. Cronus was not a nice person at all, although he was a rebel who overthrew his own father Uranus to seize power. Once he sat on the throne, he became more paranoid and arbitrary than ever. And the reason? A terrifying prophecy from Mother Earth, Gaia, who was also Zeus's grandmother. Gaia said, "One of your children will overthrow you, just as you overthrew your father." Just that one sentence made Cronus live in constant fear. Fear of being betrayed, fear of losing power, fear of his own flesh and blood becoming enemies. And then, he made a terrifying decision, to devour all his newborn children. As soon as his wife, the goddess Rhea, gave birth to the first child, Hestia, Cronus calmly opened his mouth and swallowed it. Before Rhea could react, Demeter, Hera, Hades and Poseidon, each one born was dealt with immediately. because they were immortal gods. Those children did not die. They were just imprisoned forever in the belly of their tyrannical father. Imagine, you are Rhea, a mother who cannot hold her child, cannot hear her child cry, cannot see her child grow up. Every child born immediately disappears without a trace. Each birth is a physical pain, and a tearing of the soul. No one suffered more than Rhea. She was not only a goddess, but also a single mother in a cruel marriage. But then, when it came to her sixth child, Zeus, her maternal instinct urged Rhea to do something different. After witnessing her first 5 children being mercilessly devoured by her husband, the god Cronus, Rhea, the goddess of motherhood and motherhood, gradually became desperate and angry. Each time she gave birth, her heart was broken when the child disappeared into its father's womb as soon as it cried. Rhea could not bear it any longer. When she became pregnant with her youngest child, Zeus, she felt that this was her last chance, and this time, she was determined not to let Cronus take her child away from her again. Instead of begging or pleading, which she knew would be useless, Rhea secretly planned to deceive her husband. When the day came, she gave birth to Zeus in secret and left the baby to the nymphs to care for. As for Cronus, she wrapped a large stone in a soft diaper, pretending to be a newborn baby, and solemnly handed it to him. Without the slightest doubt, Cronus swallowed the stone deliciously, believing that he had once again defeated fate, an act that was both cruel and terrifyingly naive, while Cronus triumphantly thought he had finished his last child. Zeus was taken to the island of Crete, far from the power of the Titans. Here, Zeus was raised by mythical creatures and forest nymphs, called nymphs. To hide Zeus's existence, the Koyurites warriors, loyal to Rhea, beat drums and danced with swords around the cradle day and night, drowning out the baby god's cries. Some legends even likened the scene to an ancient rave party, with war drums, shouting, and loud music echoing throughout the forest. Zeus grew up in that protection, strong, intelligent, and burning with a desire to overthrow his father to rescue his siblings. But no one knew that the stone that Cronus swallowed that day was the Stone of Destiny, marking the fall of the Titan era and opening a new era, the era of the gods on Mount Olympus. On the peaceful island of Crete, far from the watchful eyes of Cronus, the boy Zeus grew up under the protection of nymphs and forest gods. He was fed with the milk of the goat goddess Amalthea, taught wisdom, martial arts and courage. Unlike other children, Zeus always knew that he was born to do greater things. Although he had never met his father, Zeus heard about the pain of his mother Rhea, and about his siblings being swallowed alive at birth. A strange feeling burned within him, both anger and a thirst for justice. He wanted not only to seek justice for his mother, but also to free his siblings from that hellish stomach. When he was strong enough, Zeus left Crete and secretly returned to face Cronus, not as a little son, but as a righteous heir. Here, Zeus met Métis, the goddess of wisdom and strategy. It was Métis who helped Zeus come up with a daring plan, to mix a magic potion that would make Cronus vomit everything he had ever swallowed. Zeus disguised himself as a servant, trying to serve Cronus a cup of wine mixed with the drug. Cronus, so confident in his invincibility, did not suspect a thing, and drank it without hesitation. Just a few minutes later, the entire Titan palace shook. Cronus began to vomit, and a miracle happened. Each of his children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, was spit out one by one. Still alive, even the stone that Cronus had swallowed for Zeus was returned to the scene. The scene was chaotic but also magnificent. From the darkness, a new generation of gods stepped into the light, reunited with Zeus, no longer weak victims. They had become allies, warriors ready to change the fate of the universe. Immediately after, the brothers and sisters retreated with Zeus to Mount Olympus, and from here, they were called the Olympians, the young gods, brave, intelligent and united. after Zeus rescued his brothers and sisters from Cronus's belly. The younger generation of gods no longer accepted oppression. They knew clearly. There was only one way to change the world. That was to fight. And so began a titanic war, known to the Greeks as the Titanomachy, between two generations of gods, the old but mighty Titans, against the younger Olympians, led by Zeus. At first, the balance was heavily tilted in favor of the Titans. They were more numerous, more experienced, and had been in power for centuries. Zeus's side was a new breed of gods, outnumbered, outgunned, and lacking in support. What Cronus did not expect, however, was that those he had imprisoned, the Cyclops and the Hecatoncheires, would now turn to Zeus. They had been locked deep underground, and only Zeus had the courage to free them. In return, the Cyclops forged Zeus the ultimate weapon, the lightning bolt, powerful enough to tear apart the heavens. Hades was given the helmet of invisibility, and Poseidon was given the trident that controlled the seas. The war raged for 10 long years, with neither side willing to yield. In the sky, lightning tore through the dark clouds. Underground, the Hecatoncheires' strikes shook the world. The Titans and the Olympians fought back and forth. At times it seemed as if the young gods were about to fall. But their faith in justice and the future kept them standing. And then, in the final battle, Zeus summoned all the power of thunder, unleashing a fatal blow that pierced the heavens and struck Cronus, ending the reign of the Titans. After the victory, Zeus did not destroy the Titans. Instead, he sealed them in Tartarus, the deepest and darkest part of the underworld, a symbol of the old being buried, and the world turning a new page. Since then, Mount Olympus has become the headquarters of the gods, where Zeus and his siblings rule the universe, establishing order, laws and myths that are still told today. 2. The Battle of Titanomachy, the Eternal War. After many years of growing up in the dark, being protected and trained on the island of Crete, Zeus is no longer an unknown boy. He has become a strong, brave god, and carries a sacred mission in his heart: to rescue his siblings who are being held captive by his father, Cronus, in his belly. Not alone in this journey, Zeus receives the help of the goddess Metis, who represents wisdom and strategy. She gives Zeus a reckless but clever plan: to mix a potion that will make Cronus vomit up everything he has ever swallowed. Zeus disguises himself, approaches Cronus and tricks him into drinking the potion. And then a miracle happened. One by one the previously devoured gods, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades and Poseidon, were spit out, completely intact. These gods did not die because they were immortal, but for many years they had been imprisoned in darkness, without seeing the light of the sun, without feeling free. Once freed, they gathered under Zeus's banner, and from there a new force was formed, the young generation of gods, the Olympians. But the road ahead was not easy. They knew that, to truly change the world order, they would have to confront their own fathers and the long-ruling Titans. The Titanomachy, a great war between the young gods and the ancient Titans, officially broke out. The Titan faction led by Cronus, who had overthrown his father Uranus to take power, now had to face a son with the same ambitions. He summoned other Titans such as Iapetus, Hyperion, to quell the rebellion. As for Zeus, initially there were only a few brothers and sisters, but he did not give up. Zeus decided to free the ancient creatures that had been imprisoned by the Titans, including the Cyclops, one-eyed blacksmith god, and the Hecatoncheires, 100-armed monsters, in exchange for them siding with the Olympians. This was a major turning point in the war. With the Cyclops' lightning bolt, Zeus prepares to enter the most fierce battle in the history of the universe, a battle that will decide the fate of an entire age of gods. The Titanomachy is not just a clash between two groups of gods, but a confrontation between two completely different ways of life. Two ideologies, two completely different worlds. On one side are the Titans, the most ancient gods who have ever ruled the universe. They are beings born from chaos, from the earth and the sky. the first roots of the world. Cronus, their leader, once overthrew his own father, Uranus, to seize the throne. He and his Titan brothers rule with absolute power, strict control and fear. In the world of the Titans, everything revolves around rigid order. The strong rule, the weak must obey. Cronus is always suspicious, afraid of being overthrown, so he swallows his own son to prevent it. It can be said that Titan represents a conservative, cold and cruel regime. On the other side of the battle line are the Olympians, the young generation led by Zeus. They were once victims of the old era, once swallowed, once lived in the darkness of their father's belly, but did not surrender. When they were free, they not only carried gratitude, but also a desire for innovation, a desire for freedom and justice. Unlike the Titans, the Olympians do not rely on age or hereditary power. They believe in cooperation, intelligence and individual courage. Under the leadership of Zeus, the young gods formed a close-knit team, each with their own talents and roles. They represent a new era, where ideals and beliefs prevail over brute force. If the Titans are likened to ancient trees, sturdy but barren, then the Olympians are the young shoots that break through the ground and sprout, determined to change the rotten forest. This was not only a battle between father and son, past and future, but also a symbol of every struggle in human history, between those who wanted to hold on to the old power and those who dared to stand up and claim a voice for the new generation. Zeus wasted no time in freeing his brothers and sisters from the belly of Cronus. He knew that freedom was only the first step. If they wanted to change the order of the universe, they would have to confront the Titans, who had ruled for centuries with fear and violence, head on. But let's face it, Zeus's forces were too thin at the moment. Even with Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter and Hestia, they were still a group of young gods lacking battle experience. Meanwhile, the Titans were still very strong, especially Cronus, who still held supreme power, along with many fierce allies such as Iapetus, Koios, Hyperion, knowing that he could not fight a battle bare-handed and expect to win. Zeus decided to do something no one had ever dared to think of: go deep into Tartarus, the deepest dark land in the world, where the Titans once imprisoned powerful ancient creatures, who even made the Titans wary. In Tartarus, Zeus sought out two forgotten forces: Cyclops, giant blacksmiths with only one eye, famous for their unmatched weapon-making skills; Hecatoncheires, monsters with 100 arms, 50 heads. Each time they struck, the ground cracked open, the sky shook, while the Titans saw them as monsters that needed to be controlled. Zeus saw potential and loyalty, and Zeus did not come empty-handed. He came with a promise: if you help me overthrow Cronus, I will give you the freedom and glory you deserve. And they agreed. In gratitude, the Cyclops forged the three brothers' mythical weapons. Zeus received the thunderbolt, a symbol of power and justice, which could tear the heavens apart. Poseidon received the trident that controlled the seas, which could create tsunamis or shake the land. Hades was given the helmet of invisibility, which allowed him to move invisibly among his enemies, hiding in the shadows. More than just weapons, they were symbols of faith and hope, that a new era, one without fear, was coming. The war between the two generations of gods, the Titans and the Olympians, did not end in a single battle. On the contrary, it lasted for 10 years, 10 fierce years, filled with blood, tears, and the wrath of heaven and earth. The whole universe became a chaotic battlefield. In the sky, Zeus's lightning constantly tore through the clouds, lighting up the sky. On the ground, Hecatoncheires' earthquake-like punches caused mountains to collapse. The seas were raging, Poseidon's trident churning the ocean as if to swallow the whole world. On the Titan side, Cronus did not retreat. Although he was older, his experience and power were still extremely terrifying. The Titans fought not just to keep their thrones, but to protect the entire legacy and power they had guarded since the beginning of the world. The Olympians were different. They fought not for their thrones, but for the future. They stood for innovation, freedom, and justice, and that was what made them so strong. Many times, the Olympians were close to despair. In fierce battles, the young gods sometimes seemed unable to stand. Hades was mortally wounded, Poseidon was exhausted by the waves, and Zeus was exhausted after summoning lightning hundreds of times. But what was special about them was their unity. They did not fight alone. Every time one fell, another rose. Every time they were pushed back, they returned to Olympus, clasped hands, and planned a new battle. Perhaps the Titans were stronger, but the Olympians had stronger faith. For 10 years, all of nature seemed to sympathize with the war. The setting sun was red as blood. The wind howled like a soul crying. The rain fell coldly like the sigh of the universe waiting for an end. And then, the 10th year approached. When all hope was almost exhausted, Zeus decided to strike the fateful blow. After 10 long years of relentless fighting, the great war between the young gods and the ancient Titans seemed to have reached a stalemate. Both sides were exhausted, with countless casualties. The sky was torn by thunder. The earth was roaring with shaking seas and collapsing mountains. No one knew when the last day of peace would be. The Titans still fought stubbornly, especially Cronus, the king who once ruled the entire universe, still refused to accept the fact that his power was wavering. He was the embodiment of a conservative, cold, and unyielding era. As for the Olympians, though weary, their faith did not falter. They knew that if they did not end the war soon, the world would be plunged into eternal chaos. At the most desperate moment, Zeus decided to strike the decisive blow, a lightning bolt like no other. A power infused with the very essence of heaven and earth. With the help of the Cyclops, the divine blacksmiths, Zeus summoned the most powerful lightning bolt ever created. Legend has it that when Zeus raised his hand to the sky, the atmosphere froze. The lightning bolt was so bright that no one dared to look directly at it. It was not just a weapon, it was the declaration of a new era. And then, boom, the lightning bolt struck straight down on Cronus, piercing through the Titan armor, tearing the sky apart, burning the atmosphere, causing the entire universe to tremble. Cronus, the once unrivaled king, fell before the light of his own sun. Immediately, the remaining Titans were shaken in spirit. Their forces were shattered, and Zeus and his allies were soon driven into Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld, where light never reaches. The Hecatoncheires, who had been imprisoned by the Titans, now became the guardians, ensuring that the Titans would never rise again. Cronus, who once held the universe in his hands, was now just a name in legend, a monument to the overthrown past. After defeating Cronus and the Titans, Zeus and the young gods were no longer rebels. They had become the creators of a new era, facing a huge question: who would rule the world, and how? The universe was like a house that had just experienced a great flood. Everything was in chaos. There were no rules, no administrators, and no one to keep the balance of life, death, time, space. If order was not restored soon, all previous achievements would be meaningless. So the three brothers of Zeus, Poseidon and Hades, decided to divide the power among themselves, but not by arguing or fighting for power like Cronus did, but in a very special way, by drawing lots. It sounds simple, but in Greek mythology, drawing lots is not a game of chance, but an expression of trust in fate, in the justice of the universe. The result was decided as follows. Zeus won the sky, with the thunderbolt in his hand. He became the king of the gods, in charge of the weather, clouds, rain, thunder and lightning, and the link between the gods and humans. Poseidon ruled the sea. With his powerful trident, he became the god of the ocean, waves, earthquakes, and sea creatures. Hades was given the authority to manage the underworld, where the souls of the dead reside, and where life ends. No one objected, no one was jealous, because they understood. Titles do not make great, but how people act with that power. And then, from this division, a first cosmic order was established. The sky has a master. The sea has a king. The underworld has a gatekeeper. For the first time, the whole world was governed according to a clear structure, no longer dominated by fear or absolute power as in the time of Cronus. This was not just a moment of dividing power, but a milestone marking the maturity of the gods, opening the most brilliant mythological era, the era of Olympus. Zeus, the father of gods and heroes. After settling on the throne of Olympus, Zeus became not only the king of the gods, but also a great father, both literally and figuratively. He not only fathered countless important gods, heroes and humans in Greek mythology, but also established moral rules and order between the heavens and the earth. The first thing that set Zeus apart from his tyrannical father Cronus was that he ruled not by fear, but by law. Zeus created unchangeable conventions between gods and humans. Oaths must be kept. Betrayal will be punished, and all creatures deserve protection, even the lonely traveler or the abandoned beggar. It is not by chance that Zeus is called the father of gods and humans. He is the biological father of many powerful gods such as Apollo, god of light, music and prophecy; Artemis, goddess of hunting and the new moon; Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy, born from Zeus' forehead; Hermes, the clever messenger of the gods; Dionysus, god of wine and art. Not only a god, Zeus is also the father of many famous heroes in Greek mythology. Heracles, the most powerful hero, with great achievements such as killing the Hydra snake, capturing Cerberus; Perseus, the one who beheaded Medusa, rescued Princess Andromeda; Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world, the cause of the Trojan War. With the Muses, 9 goddesses of art and science born by Zeus, he is also the one who ignites creative inspiration from music, poetry, dance, to philosophy and astronomy. However, Zeus is not perfect. He is not a faithful husband, often having relationships with goddesses, nymphs, and even mortal women. But no matter what, those relationships give birth to characters who make history, stories that are told and retold thousands of years later. Zeus, with his lightning in his hand and his conflicted heart, is not only a symbol of power, but also a complex father figure, stern, forgiving, law-making, and nurturing of hope for the world. Prometheus, Pandora, and the lesson of fire, when the price of civilization is suffering. Among the Titans who sided with Zeus in the Great War of Titanomachy, there was a special figure, Prometheus, a god with wisdom and compassion rarely seen in the world of power and selfishness of the gods. When the world stabilized after Zeus' victory, Prometheus was tasked with creating a new creature, humans. He molded them from clay, giving them a divine form, but weak, fragile, and without the special powers of wild beasts or birds. While the other gods did not care much about mortals, Prometheus saw potential and aspiration in them. But humans were too weak to survive. No fangs, no fur to keep them warm, no speed or natural weapons. What they needed was a spark, literally. But Zeus forbade humans to have fire, because he thought humans were not worthy enough. He feared that if they possessed fire, the symbol of wisdom and power, humans would become arrogant and challenge the gods. Prometheus defied the ban, stole fire from Mount Olympus, hid it in a reed, and gave it to mankind. With that fire, mankind learned how to cook, warm themselves, forge iron, build houses, and establish the first civilization. This action made Zeus extremely angry. As the god of law and order, he considered what Prometheus did to be treachery and insolence. As punishment, Zeus ordered Prometheus to be chained to a cliff, where every day an eagle would come to peck at his liver. And at night the liver would grow back, a pain that would never end. But Zeus was not done yet. To punish all mankind for accepting fire, Zeus ordered his son, the blacksmith god Hephaestus, to create the first woman, Pandora. She was beautiful, seductive, and was given gifts from the gods, but also given dangerous curiosity. Zeus gave Pandora a box, actually a jar, telling her not to open it. But then, as fate would have it, Pandora could not resist her curiosity. And when the lid of the box was opened, all the world's evils, disease, war, poverty, death, poured out. Only one thing remained at the bottom of the box: hope. And that is the eternal lesson. Civilization always comes with a trade-off. And although humans have to endure thousands of sufferings, what keeps them alive is hope. The consequences of Zeus's red strings, when love creates both legend and tragedy. Even as the supreme king of the gods, Zeus could not avoid the vibrations of love. It was even said that Zeus's heart trembled more often than his thunder. And it was those perverse, passionate, sometimes selfish love affairs that wove in countless legendary and tragic stories in Greek mythology. Zeus married Hera, the goddess of marriage and family, a sharp, powerful, and also very angry wife. Although Hera was his first wife, Zeus was famous for being the most amorous man on Mount Olympus, often having affairs with goddesses, nymphs, and even mortal women. From those affairs, he had a series of children who were both great and infamous. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, born not from her mother's womb but from Zeus's forehead, a strange symbol of the birth of wisdom and power. Apollo and Artemis, perfect twins, children of Zeus and the goddess Leto. One was the god of light, the other was the goddess of hunting, symbolizing the balance between art and power. Hermes, the clever and cunning messenger, son of Zeus and the nymph Maia. Dionysus, the god of wine and festivals, born from the tragic love affair between Zeus and Semele, the mortal mother who was burned when she accidentally saw Zeus's true form. Not stopping at gods, Zeus is also the father of many legendary characters on earth. Helen of Sparta, considered the most beautiful woman in the world. Daughter of Zeus and Queen Leda, it was her beauty that sparked the Trojan War, which lasted 10 years, causing many heroes to die. Heracles, Hercules, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, who performed 12 great labors, but his life was filled with suffering, hatred and sacrifice. Zeus' relationships were not only about love, but also the seeds for tragedy, war and the birth of heroes. Zeus never thought that a glance or a moment of passion could shape the fate of ancient Greece. The love of a god is not like that of a human, but it is what makes the gods very human, passionate, selfish, and leaves consequences that sometimes they cannot control. In thousands of Greek myths, Zeus always appears as an omnipotent god, holding the lightning bolt, ruling over Mount Olympus, commanding both heaven and earth and humans. But if we only look at Zeus through his power, we will miss something deeper. Zeus is a multi-dimensional symbol, both powerful and complex, and very human. He is not perfect. He makes mistakes. He gets angry, jealous, and sometimes arbitrary. But that is also why Zeus becomes close, becomes a reflection of the inner conflicts of humans. When we are in power, when we love, when we fail, or when we have to make life or death choices. In modern times, Zeus still lives with us, not on Mount Olympus, but in things that seem very scientific. The name Jupiter, the Roman version of Zeus, is currently the name of the largest planet in the solar system. It is not by chance. It is the planet with the strongest gravitational pull, symbolizing undeniable power and influence. People still name Saturn's satellites Titan and Epimetheus, recalling the war between Zeus and the early giants. Even the constellation Gemini in the night sky, Castor and Pollux, the twin sons of Zeus, symbolize brotherhood, sacrifice and eternity. Not stopping there, the image of Europa, one of Zeus' mortal lovers, was given the name of an entire continent, Europe. The myth has become geography, history, and part of the way people see the world. Strange, isn't it? An ancient god, born in the Greek imagination thousands of years ago, now exists in our astronomy books, maps, and even our philosophies. Zeus is no longer the thunderbolt-wielding god sitting on a cloud. He is a symbol of power with responsibility, of decisions that can change the world, and the consequences that come with them.